The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone and welcome to the latest in the ChemCareers series of webinars. Today we're going to be talking about developing leadership skills because I expect all of you out there listening, you're all very, very good chemists, I'm sure you are. But sometimes the skills that you need to develop if you're aspiring to a leadership role can be quite different from the ones that you've honed to perfection as a chemist. So if I can move the slide on, I'll introduce myself first. My name is Julie Franklin and I'm one of the career and professional development advisors here at the Royal Society of Chemistry. And I'll tell you a little bit more at the end of the broadcast about what we do and how, if you're a member yourself, you can get some support from us or you can ask further questions if anything comes out of the webinar that you're interested in. We do these webinars on a monthly basis and we put them all up on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. You just need to search for ChemCareers if you want to listen again. Well, it's my great pleasure as well to introduce my panel guest today, who is actually one of my colleagues, Tracy Bolden, who is one of our training and development specialists here at the Royal Society of Chemistry. So, Tracy, would you like to say hello and tell people about your role and what you do?
Absolutely. Hello, everybody. It's great. It's a pleasure to be doing this, actually. I'm a qualified training and development specialist and a coach, and I have worked with leaders and managers in many organisations. So I just want to get that across to you. So as we're going through the session, it becomes sort of clear that, these are transitional skills. They're how can I put this? They're quite common sort of questions and attributes about being a leader, those sorts of things. So as we go through the session, please bear in mind that this is based on quite a number of years experience, more years than I care to actually mention, to be honest. So, yeah. Okay.
I'm sure that's not true. No. Okay. So I think we'll start with what actually being a leader means, because if we go out and we're talking to members, and I'm sure Tracy in her role too, for as many people as you ask for a definition of what a leader is, you'd probably get that many different answers. So I thought we'd start the session today by looking at some of the many questions and maybe misconceptions around leadership. What does make a good leader? Are people born that way? Can anyone be a good leader? I suppose we can all think of iconic figures who we would consider to be good leaders, but opinions vary so much. I think it's fair to say that leaders do have certain qualities in common. So how can we begin to describe the attributes of an effective leader, Tracy?
They're really good questions, actually. And I have heard people say that some people are born to be leaders. And I'm not disputing that. I think that's true to some extent. But I would say that many of us can acquire leadership skills over a period of time, as long as we're disciplined in our approach and we're willing to think as a leader. So I think the attributes of being a leader are authenticity. So it's about being real, so it's being ourselves, just so people see what they see is what they get. Many people actually respect that, I think. Another thing about good leadership for me is good communication. So it's about being open and honest where it's viable, because I think sometimes, obviously, especially very senior leaders, there are things that they can't disclose. But I think on the whole, many leaders want to be open and honest with their teams around them and people around them. It's about being articulate, getting messages across in a succinct and straightforward way. So people are not confused, so people really get it and they understand. My particular favourite, I'm being honest, is thinking on your feet, because that does come with its own challenges. But good leaders, and especially established leaders, if you like, are able to make decisions in the moment. And this is where the authenticity comes across for me as well, because again, it's in that dialogue with teams and with people. I think if leaders listen to people and understand them, then decision making becomes a bit easier. So flexibility is another one. It's adapting when needed, and that's even more paramount now in organisations where change is constant. It's a given now. Integrity. And that's about being respectful of the position and what it entails as a leader, and bringing people with us. Compelling presence, being assertive and bold. I quite like that one as well, actually. There is, and we are talking, I think it's worth saying that these skills are acquired over a period of time as well. They don't come overnight, okay? And compelling presence, when I've worked with people, it has literally been with mostly quite senior people, actually, who've been leaders for a long time. Okay, but that said, compelling presence can, if we believe in ourselves and we're confident, it can actually be displayed quite quickly. And empathy, and this is a really important one as well. Leadership is about being aware of others, not just ourselves. And it's literally about being in other people's shoes and understanding that people are key to success. And that comes back to listening skills. So that's really listening and understanding where people are coming from.
Okay, yeah, no, that's a good list there. And as I said right at the very beginning, not necessarily the same skills that you would regard as being necessary to be an excellent chemist. I mean, certainly there are some in common there, things like authenticity, being able to communicate well, being articulate. I think as chemists, because I am one really, I think we're all good at thinking on our feet and solving problems. And I guess you have to have a sense of humour to be a good chemist. But some of the others, you can see, and maybe you do possess those skills already. Yeah. Maybe they are things that you need to develop. It's like lots of things in life. You don't necessarily have to be born to do something. You can learn to do something too. So if you're looking at some of those skills and thinking, well, I've got that one and that one, but I'm not so sure about that. I think Tracy's given you a really good overview of the kind of things that you can be thinking about in terms of what you could do to help yourself a bit more. We'll talk a bit more about that later on.
Can I just add something in relation to humour? Because it does get asked quite a few questions. People say, well, where's the boundaries with humour? And I just think it's about, if we're authentic in ourselves, it's just about using humour in a really good, considered way. And let's be honest, we're drawn to people who are quite warm, who smile, in a good way and connect with people. So that's what humour is about there. So it's not it's using it in a good way.
Yeah, and being aware of, who your audience is, of course, and where they might be coming from. Okay. So we often hear, another common thing that we often hear is the terms management and leadership almost being used interchangeably. Are they the same thing, do you think, Tracy?
Again, another really good question. They're not entirely the same thing. And I'll give you examples, actually. For instance, a leader will innovate, okay, and a manager will organise, okay. So these are generalisations, but I think they do work in a practical, everyday world. Actually, it's worth thinking about how they work, and I think that's what's behind these definitions, if you like. A leader inspires trust. Okay, so this is what a leader is expected to do, inspire trust, whereas a manager is more about controlling. So if we think about a manager working with a team to achieve a set of goals over a period of time, okay, so we'll be, as managers, assessing performance, measuring performance, and doing all the brilliant stuff that managers are expected to do and deliver on, okay. However, the key point to make here is that not all managers are good leaders. Okay, and sometimes in teams, people follow managers because, well, that's what they're paid to do. So it's worth just thinking about it in that context. And a leader, the difference here is a leader doesn't have to be a manager. It can literally be anybody who's got the ability to lead. Okay, and that's where, for instance, someone can be managing a project, not necessarily a team of people, but they're leading the project team. They're influencing and they're motivating the project team to deliver. Okay, so really that's what leadership is. And it's worth thinking about context. If we think about a manager who is an inspiring leader, or so, it's what they do is they don't, just work with their team to deliver what's needed. They'll actually build the capability of their team, so their team becomes it's all self-motivated and inspired to do what they need to do, and and for us to do that, we need to see the bigger picture. So for me, working with working with a leader, I should say, is when I know that what I do is connected to the bigger picture, and I'm inspired to do that and go, above and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound?
Yes, it does. I mean, I think, you're quite right when you say a good leader will inspire other people to do things. Once you achieve a leadership position, then really that is your role, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's to inspire other people to do the work. It can be quite a difficult thing, can't it, moving into management and leadership roles where you're expecting now other people to do work for you, And I suppose with the leader is the person who does have the organisational vision and the aspirations and needs to communicate those very clearly to people so that they become inspired and actually want to do the work or whatever it might be.
A leader recognises, and this is the distinct, what you were just saying as well, just to emphasise, guys, a leader recognises that they have to take their team forward with them, and that the people are absolutely essential to what they need to do.
Okay, that's great. Thanks very much. Now, Tracy, you've had a lot of experience of leadership programs, and it must be very valuable to be on a leadership development program if you're an aspiring leader yourself. So, Tracy, do you think you could tell us something about leadership development programs and how they work? What could people expect if they were put onto such a program?
Yeah, absolutely. I've also coached some people who've been through leadership programs, and it's what lots of programs will tend to do is to include subjects such as change. And it's really about bringing people out of their comfort zone. And there will be lots of things on strategy, lots of subjects on, the bigger picture and how people can motivate their teams to move forward. There's a whole range of subjects, and it is about the leader. There's also, for me, a big element of an actual development program is that many people get an opportunity to put a lot of stuff into practice. So it's not just the theory. And I think it's also about building, for a leader when they're working for a development program, it's not just relying on the program itself. It's building coalitions with other people, so peers and managers, because I'll be honest with you, when I've worked with leaders in the past, I said, anybody can actually do a development program. It's how we carry that out in the real world that matters. So it is about building those coalitions, people that can help and support us. And what you can expect as part of a development program as such is working with a coach to help you do that as well. And that's all about the face-to-face support as well in working with a coach. So you develop your skills further. And I think the benefits of also working with leaders when I have been coaching, it's around people recognising, okay, I've learned this, for instance, change on how change affects me. So there's lots of self-reflection in that program as well. And do you know what? I'm beginning to realise that this works and that doesn't work, etc. So, and again, the coaching does help that. So I would actually encourage anybody who's thinking of actually doing a program is to get that external support of a coach as well, whether that's integrated in the program or whether it's independent, independent.
Okay. And is there something about leadership styles? There's not just one style of, there's not just one style of being a leader, is there, Tracy? I suppose you must have seen many different things. So how would you describe different textbook leadership styles? We'll put a few of them up on the screen so that people can see.
Yeah, I think that I've added these because these are probably the most popular ones, actually. So transformative leadership, as you see up there, an example, is it encourages employees to think critically. And the leaders, to do this, the leaders got to be inspiring. So open and honest, all the skills that we were talking about at the beginning. And it's about vision as well. So transformative leadership is around actually the leader having a vision of what needs to happen. I suppose they could being a bit charismatic and motivating, definitely motivating, really helps here as well. Hands-on. So the next one, hands-on. This takes into account employee perspectives when making decisions. So all the best ideas are looked at, and many employees respect the approach as well. So again, that's all around a leader actually encouraging that communication, being open and honest and frank as much as they can, just to encourage people to come forward and and have that dialogue, if you like. And transactional leadership it's very much about the results orientated, which is good for business. It works, absolutely it does. And it's not so autocratic. There is an autocratic approach as well, where it's very dominant, etc. And that's now out of favour. I think it's still got its place very in a small amount, but it tends to be out of favour. Most leaders actually do like they like all of these approaches, but the transactional, it's still about people actually delivering what's needed. So a leader will be very fair again, but they want to see some kind of result.
And I think we can all see that, taking other people with you is bound to get better results than being too autocratic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's also fair to say as well, Julie, that lots of leaders will actually use elements of all of these. So they're not going to go into a leadership role and say, right, I'm just going to be this, this and this. They'll use, all of these entwined with each other, if you like. But it's just different examples of how leadership works.
Yes, I mean, things don't necessarily fit into neat boxes, and I guess there would be times if you're a good leader that you might use a mixture of all of those styles to get the job done. And people aren't necessarily one type of leader all the time.
No,
are
totally,
they?
absolutely right.
Okay.
It's worth mentioning as well about sometimes if we think about what we said about the development program and these elements of these leaderships, Julie, leadership styles, I should say, that. When I've worked with people, it's leaders, what they've actually sort of wanted to do is come out of their comfort zone as well. So they might say, well, actually, Tracy, I'm drawn to, say, transactional. I'd like to be a bit more transformative because that's where the organisation's going. So I've worked with people who've done that because they recognise it's, as you say, it brings people on board.
Yeah, I can see that. Now, I mean, if we look at the individuals who might be on these leadership programs, they're going to come from all sorts of different backgrounds. They're going to have all sorts of thoughts and issues themselves about becoming a leader and whether it's right for them. Yeah. So do you think you could take us through some common issues from your experience that people encounter while they're going through leadership programs or developing themselves as a leader? And how can people develop coping strategies to get them through the tough times? Because this is not going to happen overnight, is it?
No, it's a really good point. Well, do you know what? At the end of the day, especially so we said before, leaders can be any level, any role, if you like. But let's assume that, you're working with people, who, as you say, sort of are new into the role, etc. It's going to be a combination of excitement, nerves, and I've come across people who feel overwhelmed, suddenly feel overwhelmed by the responsibility that they have. And the programme does bring this into play, if you like. I would honestly say leaders of all levels, the most common issue people have is fitting it all in.
Yeah.
It's about not just going through a programme, the learning, etc. It's also about how it works everyday life. But as you quite rightly say, it is a gradual progression. And also some aspiring people that aspiring leaders, managers that I've worked with have spoken of impostor syndrome.
Oh, well, that's a common thing. And I think we hear this in my role, as a career and professional development advisor, talking to members. Many of them do feel this imposter syndrome and almost feel guilty for being able to do what they can do. So, take us through that. How does that come about and what can you do about it, Tracy?
It's something that's kind of like in all of us to some degree, actually. But when I've worked with people as a coach, the common thing has been, suddenly once I was an aspiring leader and now I'm actually a leader and oh my gosh, I've got all this going on around me and all this responsibility and I'm worried I'm going to get found out. And to be fair, they've acquired the job and they've achieved the role because of their skills and the fact that they can do it. So it's a kind of like a lack of self-belief to some degree. And this is where, again, working with a coach comes into it. I'm aware that I keep plugging the word coach, but I think the real key, role of a coach is to actually help the manager get through, or, the leader get through this. It's when people also feel, even though they've achieved the role by their own means, they feel a bit unqualified. And they might be comparing themselves with somebody who's an established leader, for instance. Yeah.
And there is this myth around that, any leader has to be born to be a leader. And as you've rightly said, sometimes it can take a lot of hard work. As I said, we do hear this many times, people. And the other thing that just from a careers angle, another thing that people say to us is, I don't know how I've got where I am today. Things have just fallen into my lap. Well, generally, things fall into your lap because you're good,
Absolutely.
and I think we're all a bit too self-deprecating at times. I can understand where imposter syndrome comes from, of course, but I think you're quite right. It is self-belief, and it is working with other people and building that support network around you. You've mentioned coaches, we'll mention other ways that you can get that kind of personal support. But, a lot of it is believing in yourself, which can be difficult.
Absolutely.
But I think working with other people can help you to really appreciate the qualities that you've got that you don't see in yourself.
Right.
Again, that's something else that we see an awful lot. So a good support network is good. Is that just around your professional life, or can you get support from, do you hear of people getting support from home, from friends, family, that sort of thing? Is that all valid too?
Absolutely. And I will be really honest. I've got a family member who I use as a sounding board, because I know, and they're not a coach, but I know they're going to be absolutely honest with me. And and sometimes we all need that in a good way. So we need, honesty, not brutal honesty. I don't mean that to be harsh or anything, but sometimes just someone we trust, we can use as a sounding board. And I would say if there's somebody, whether it's a spouse or a family member or a good friend, use them as a sounding board. And many people are willing to help as well if we ask for it. And colleagues as well. I would honestly say that we underestimate just how great our own colleagues can be around us.
That is true. Yeah. No, that is true. So I think, that wide support network is kind of a wide and deep support network, people who are experts in leader coaching, such as you, but also, down-to-earth people who see us on a day-to-day basis and can give us real feedback on how we're doing, on things like communication skills, and how we come across to other people can be very valuable. So this developing as a leader, obviously it's mainly geared towards your work and your professional life, but you're not a completely separate person from work.
Absolutely,
you are,
right.
So whatever source of support you can get and help with people, as Tracy says, that you can trust, I think is a good thing to do. And looking a little bit into the future, it's important to get support and to develop these skills for the first time. But let's put us in the position of us becoming a leader. I mean, leadership isn't static, is it, Tracy? I mean, can you tell us why it's important for people who are established leaders to be constantly reviewing their performance and enhancing their skills?
Oh gosh, well, we mentioned change earlier on, didn't we? Spoke about change, and any leader of an organisation, whatever level they are, know that things don't stand still for very long, and an organisation just can't actually rest on their laurels. So many leaders, continue as professional development, keep the CPD up to date, and that's absolutely with networking. I think networking is very powerful too. I don't know if we've actually used the word networking, but that is a very powerful medium, to do that. And it's also about keeping up to date on industry trends as well. And the only way we can do that is through networking and support networks, and colleagues. Working with our peers as well. I think the real key message here is that even established leaders who are very successful in what they do, they've been around for a long time, don't rest on their laurels, because just can't afford to.
No, you're absolutely right. It's interesting you mentioned the dreaded networking word there, because again, in my role, talking to people, to RSC members, having career consultations and discussions with them, the networking word strikes fear into the bravest people's hearts sometimes. They don't like the thought of it, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about networking out there. I always think that if you're networking with the right people, then it's just having a conversation about things that you're both interested in. There's nothing scary about it. And I would really encourage you, if you are a Royal Society of Chemistry member, to have a look at all the networking opportunities that your membership offers you. If you are a full member, an MRSC, or a fellow, an FRSC, you can join 3 of our special interest groups, and you can join any of our divisions as part of your membership package. If you're an associate member, an AMRSC, you can join 2 special special interest groups and any of our divisions. And all of those divisions will have meetings and online networking and webinars and ways that you can interact with people you wouldn't normally get the chance to meet. But of course, you know straight away that you've got something in common with all of those people, so it's not quite so scary.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is all part of your membership package. So do go to our website, which is www.rsc.org, and go to our membership and professional community pages and have a look under the tab Connect with Others and see just how many opportunities there are for you to build your network, because it is important. The RSC is a good place to start. Most of our groups are, well, all of our groups are very friendly and they all welcome new people. So that could be a way to get your networking going, and who knows who you might meet or interact with. A lot of our interest groups are around scientific topics, but we have got some broader ones that are there. We have got a management group, for example, and a consultancy group. So they're all there, and you can access those as part of your membership. Again, if you're not sure how to, do drop me an email, careers@rsc.org, and we can help you with that afterwards. So going back to people who might be aspiring to be leaders, Tracy, we've talked about leadership programs and what you can develop, and I'm sure that those programs are fairly common in larger organisations, but we know that a lot of our members work in small to medium-sized organisations, SMEs, or really tiny micro organisations, and they may not have the resources, or a human resources or a training department who could actually offer them a programme like this. But nonetheless, if we've got somebody who is at the beginning of their career and aspiring to be a leader later on, and they're working in that kind of environment, what could an aspiring leader do to help themselves, even if they're not on an established programme?
Yeah, I'm just going back to when I started off in my career. Actually, what I think the advice, very simple terms, is to actually get out there and make the right contacts, find out more about the information, what a leader actually involves from other leaders. So, for instance, when I started out in my coaching career, I used to go and meet other coaches to get an idea of what it actually involved, because the key point to mention here is some people are great at what they do. Not everybody is a leader. Okay, not everybody can be a leader. And I think it's deciding that for yourself. Like, for instance, I knew lots of people coach, but could I actually be a coach myself? Which is, and which is why I went out and spoke to other coaches. So, have conversations with different people who've led, whether they've led on projects, whether they've led on, led teams, just to give you, it's nothing better, I should say, than learning from somebody that's actually doing the role themselves. I think it's hearing it from the horse's mouth, as we say.
Yeah, true.
And then what we were talking about, the attributes of being a leader, and have a think about those. Think about, absolutely, okay, I'm a good communicator, but how much better can I get at it in relation to being a leader, and what does it need me to do? And how can I actually display those leadership skills now in the role that I've got? Is there an opportunity for me to do that? Because there might be varying degrees of that. Because we do tend to find that aspiring managers, for instance, who are aspiring to be leaders, whatever level that manager is, you'll guarantee that they're showing some kind of leadership skills in the role that they actually have.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I think by being more self-aware, and also by seeing every opportunity as an opportunity to develop leadership skills, it doesn't have to be inside of work. A good technique that we recommend people to do when they're seeking to develop their careers are to use job adverts as a free source of information. So if you're aspiring to a leadership role, wondering if it's for you, there's nothing to stop you looking at leadership roles, even if you don't feel ready for it now, but looking at adverts for leadership roles in publications on websites, and take the pressure off yourself. You don't have to apply for the role, but you can really have a look at the attributes that are required, the number of years of experience they're looking for, and particularly the skills that they're looking for over and above your chemistry skills, and think, right, okay, if I'm aspiring to be a leader at a future point in my career, these are all the skills that I need to be developing now. And some of those, as Tracy said, you might be able to not change your job, but to modify your job to give yourself the opportunity to develop a wider range of skills. But you can also use examples outside work as well. There's no way that you can do that in work, but as a part of your social life, you can take on a leadership role in a voluntary group or a social group or something like that. You are still developing those skills. It doesn't, if there's no way for you to do it at work, don't think there's no way for you to do it at all. Just be aware of the skills that you need and find other opportunities to develop them, because I'm sure that will be equally recognised, would it, Tracy, if someone if you can be in a leadership role in a community or voluntary group, or a leader of a local football team or whatever it might be, that is showing leadership skills which are transferable.
It's a really interesting point. I'll just say finally on that, Julie, and it's worth thinking about for everyone out there as well, that there are examples of leadership that we do in our everyday lives that we don't even consider our leadership. And I recently have been working with a lady that's been running the local community centre, and I've actually started working with her, and she is fantastic, and yet she does not see herself as a leader. So we've had a discussion about it, because I went, God, you've led this project amazingly well, and she says, no, I'm just doing it. She doesn't see herself, and yet it is leadership.
No, and that's absolutely right. It's demystifying it really, and breaking it down into the component skills, and think, right, I already get the chance to do that, or I already know I can do that, but I'm not so strong on this. How do I find an opportunity to develop it? So if you are self-motivated, and we've already said that, if you're going to be a good leader, you need to be self-motivated. Use some of that self-motivation to find opportunities to develop the skills for yourself. They will be useful to you, whatever direction your career takes you in. So it's very worth being aware of what skills you need to develop and taking that positive action yourself to do it. Because I think, if you're going for a job, let's say, and you can show that level of self-motivation, you don't need other people to push you. You're the kind of person who will be proactive and go and do it for yourself. I mean, for any kind of role, that's going to be attractive to a recruiter, isn't it, Tracy?
Absolutely.
Okay. So we've talked a bit about having leadership coaches, and some of you may be lucky enough to be able to access a leadership coach while you're on a program like this. And I think Tracy's already outlined the kind of help that a coach can give you. For those of you who are thinking to yourself, well, maybe I'm not on a leadership program, I haven't got a coach, what can I do? Is there anything out there to help me? I would say that through the RSC's careers team, so that's the team that I'm a member of, we do actually have a volunteer mentoring scheme where you can get an experienced member of the Royal Society of Chemistry to mentor you. We'll talk a little bit more about what the difference might be in a minute, but basically, all of our mentors have to be full members or fellows of the Royal Society of Chemistry, so they're very experienced members. We've met them all, they've all been trained, and the lovely thing about them is they all do this as volunteers. They're at the stage of their career now where they would like to bring other people on to help them develop their careers too. We don't pay them at all. They do this because it's something they want to do. Now, it's very, very easy. If you'd like to apply for a mentor, I'll show you the link further towards the end of this broadcast. If you are an associate member, a member or a fellow of the RSC, you can apply to have a mentor. So obviously most of our people who apply to have mentors are at the beginning of their career, but it really doesn't matter if you're a fellow of the RSC, you can also have a mentor too. And what your mentor will do will help you to define your goals and help you to reach them for yourself. There's a lot of overlap between mentoring and coaching anyway. If you have a coach, then that's probably fantastic and that's probably working for you. If you haven't, you can always apply to the RSC for one of our volunteer mentors, and we will try and match you with somebody with the skills and attributes that you're hoping to develop, who can give you some honest feedback. So what would you think are the key benefits of having someone like a mentor or a coach, Tracy, while you're developing your leadership skills?
As you say, they are quite similar, mentoring and coaching. I think the best, the bonus of having either, to be honest, is that they are an actual neutral, non-judgmental sounding board. So, when I've worked with people, it's literally going into a room with them on a one-to-one or on the phone, whatever that may be, and actually discussing what's going well, what's not going so well, and helping them to come to their own conclusions. I think the worst thing possible is to actually try to put words in somebody's mouth. So coaching and mentoring is around applying that neutral aspect, you know, where somebody can open up, be quite frank, talk about their experience, but and have somebody listen to them.
Yeah.
To help them get to where they need to get. So it's absolutely critical. And just for a distinction, if I may, just between the difference of mentoring and coaching. I mean, coaching, when I've worked with leaders, aspiring leaders too, coaching's been for a shorter term. So it might be, 4 or 5 months, 6 months at the most. Mentoring over a longer period of time. And the reason why is because mentoring is about the broader person. So coaching is about the skills, what we need to implement into organisations to make it work. And mentoring is around career development as well. Okay, you can incorporate it into coaching, don't get me wrong, but mentoring enables, because it's longer term, enables for that, more detailed discussion, like thinking for somebody actually. So mentoring is a broader view, and coaching is about specific development. They both work. They're both, and also coaching is about now, and mentoring is about the future.
Yeah. No, I think that's a fair summary. I think what we find, our mentoring scheme has been very successful in terms of, our mentors certainly enjoy it, and they're now at the stage where they're coming back and asking for, could they have another mentee, please? And we do know that the mentees have found it very useful, because it does just give you that little bit of safe space. In our normal busy lives, when do you ever get the chance to sit and think about yourself and what you really want and what you've developed this week? We never ever do. There are too many calls on our time. So I think knowing that you've got to prepare for a meeting with a mentor or a coach, and then you've got to sit and be talking to them about this for an hour or whatever it might be, really does make you focus on yourself, which is something generally that we're not very good at. And there's nothing selfish about it. If you want to develop your career, it's essential that you do that. Tracy's quite right. I mean, our mentoring scheme, it's a general career mentoring scheme. So our mentoring relationships usually last for around about a year, I would say. And there's everybody will have a different experience of it depending on what they need. But if it's something that you think would be helpful to you, I will put up a link at the end of this broadcast to show you how you can actually apply. Okay, so we're coming sort of towards the finish of what we've got to say now. I'm going to ask Tracy one last thing now. And while Tracy answers the question that I'm going to put to her now, please feel free to type in any questions that you might have for Tracy or for me. We'll see them coming up on our screen here. And when Tracy has finished answering this next question, we're going to have a look at some of the questions that you've put to us live, and we will do our best to answer them. So here we go then, Tracy. This is my last question to you. If you had one piece of advice to offer an aspiring leader, what would it be?
I would honestly say is to be you. And that might sound, I don't mean that to sound woolly or however, but it's just be honest and just sort of think about, okay, so what does leadership mean for me? What does it really mean for other people around me as well? Be genuinely interested in other people, and be resilient, actually, because there's times when things may not go well.
Of course.
And how do we deal with that? How do we work with people around us? And obviously times when, things do go very well for leaders too. And do you know what? In summary, if I may, I think it's all about tuning into ourselves, to tune into yourself as a leader, and then tune into other people, because all leaders have said to me they don't get anywhere without the people around them and their teams. And
right. Okay, we've got some questions coming in now. A couple of people have said that the sound quality is a bit less than you would expect. I'm sorry about that. There's nothing that we can do from that here. That's the software, I'm afraid. I hope most of you can hear. And like I said, we will put a recording of this webinar up on our YouTube channel. You'll just need to search ChemCareers or Royal Society of Chemistry and you'll find it. So I do apologise if the sound quality has not been great for you, but there's really nothing we can do about that here. We have had some questions though. Someone is asking how you can motivate an employee who's not willing to learn new things. So what would you say about that, Tracy? If you're a leader in a position where you've got to motivate someone and they don't seem to be very willing to learn new things, what can you do?
That's challenging.
Yeah,
that's definitely challenging.
Yeah,
I from experience as well. Again, because that's what you go on, don't you?
Yeah.
I think it's around perseverance. And it goes back to that word resilience. And you know, in as such as some people will meet what is needed straight away. Some people take more time. So I just think a suggestion is to find out what's actually happening for the person, and whether or not what they need to learn is absolutely essential to moving forward. Whether there can be a compromise somewhere, but it's finding out about what makes them tick actually, because there is always a reason for it. There is a reason.
Okay, so maybe it's the empathy and the getting to know them and sort of maybe offering them a carrot rather than a stick. I don't know. Yeah,
it's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge. But yes, it is about that because we mentioned about those sorts of skills, didn't we, at the beginning?
We did. And like you said, you know, things aren't always going to go right.
No,
you know, sometimes you will end up in some challenging situations, which again is why it's good to have a good support network around you of people that you can discuss things with, you know, without naming any names. I would also say another thing that I should have mentioned when I was talking about our mentoring program is it's the good thing about our mentoring program, I think, is that your mentor will be totally independent of your organisation.
I was just going to mention.
So, I mean, even within your organisation, a good mentor should not be in your line management chain anyway, because there's obviously a different kind of a relationship there. But if you apply to have a mentor through the RSC, then what that means is that your mentor will give a completely unbiased appraisal or come from a completely outside of your company perspective, you know, and you can learn an awful lot from that. Did you want to say something about that too, Tracy?
Yeah, I'll just very quickly add to that, Julie, and answer that question as well about motivators. If ever I've gone through a period in my career where I haven't had the motivation that I need, it happens to all of us.
Of course.
I've worked with a mentor.
Yes.
And I'm glad you said that, Julie, because it's helped to have that independent perspective as well. And it worked. It really, really did work.
Yeah.
And it's not to replace my manager or anybody I was working with, but just to give me a different perspective.
Yeah. And I think as well, a good mentor will challenge you.
Yeah.
And sometimes they challenge you without realising they're challenging you because they're coming from a different perspective. The danger is always within an organisation that we all talk the same language. You know, Tracy and I will use the same acronyms. We're trying not to do it today.
Absolutely.
But outside of our organisation, they will be meaningless. And, you know, if you have a mentor from outside your organisation, they can challenge you quite gently, just to make you think, well, why do we always do it this way? You know, that's a good point, you know. Yeah. So again, I think that's another good reason why having an independent mentor might be useful for you. There's somebody here who said that they have had a mentor through the RSC, and and it's taken them a long time to get matched up with their mentor. And should they go with a program run by their employer? Well, I would say apply to us again. It could be that you applied to us right at the very beginning of the scheme when we didn't have that many mentors trained. And we do insist that all our mentors have to be trained. And obviously we've had to go around the country training up a good number of mentors so that we've got enough for everyone. We have got a good sustainable base now. So if you tried before and it seemed to be taking a long time, then what I would say is maybe come back to us again and try again. It could just be that for what you wanted, we didn't have enough mentors trained who we felt had the right expertise to help you, and that might be different now. So if you have tried before, then please do try again. You know, it's you can have a mentor more than once through the RSC. That's another thing to say. Okay, somebody's asking a question here about how you can develop coping strategies to deal with challenges. Tracy mentioned this a little bit before, but I guess it's something a lot of people worry about. You know, if you're in a leadership role, you have to seem to be coping with all these challenges, and sometimes it might personally be quite difficult for you. So would you like to take us through that again, Tracy?
Yeah, I think the key one here is we've mentioned about seeking support from a mentor or a coach. I think it's also about thinking about our resilience. So, you know, just thinking about what we cope with, what we don't cope with. But I've ultimately, people I've worked with in my career, I've always had someone as a sounding board, because we cannot do it on our own.
No.
And it's become, and I've had people being really open to me about that. It's, so I suppose that the biggest tip that, in that is to actually realise that you're not on your own. Nobody's on their own. And it's to seek that help and to talk to other people, and just be a bit open about it in context. I understand that no one's going to want to go to, in organisations, I can't cope with this. I don't mean it like that, but seek some assistance and advice, whether that's a coach or a mentor. It's, people can turn around by actually having someone to talk to.
I'm sure that's absolutely right. I mean, we've said the idea of a born leader, well, maybe some people are, but far fewer people than those who work hard at it. So you do need that support network around you. And, it's certainly no sign of weakness or the fact that you're not destined to be a leader. If you have had to ask for help every now and again, provided you're clear about what it is you want and you go and ask the right people. Most people are willing to help. Most people would want to help you develop your career. Sometimes it can be a bit of a psychological thing to go to somebody and ask for help. But I think there are lots of different ways of doing it. It's not necessarily asking for help. It's just asking for that person to support you, really. If they know that you're learning to do something, there are going to be challenges along the way. And I think you'd have to be, a superhero or a superhuman or something like that, never to have any issues with it. We all know that. And most of us who are, a little bit further along in our careers would always be very willing to help and support people who are going through this for the first time.
I've got to say as well, just to add to that, is in my career, if I've gone through a stage of it, oh God, this is just so much, too much, as it happens, I've just gone and spoken to people who are the subject experts or whatever that may be. And the opening line is, I just want to pick your brains. So you don't have to literally say to somebody, oh, this is, I can't cope,
of course
whatever.
Not.
But I want to pick your brains. And people will share information. I've learned that.
Yes, they will. But they have to know you want it.
Absolutely.
You can't expect them to know that. And again, having a mentor or a coach or somebody like that, that's a person who's tailor-made to go to with these kinds of things. And they will be very willing to help you or, give you any guidance from their perspective, I'm sure. Okay, there's someone else has just said that the sound quality is good for them. So I think some people, I hope most of you are hearing this okay. I do apologise if the sound quality is not great, but like I said, there isn't much we can do about that. We know it's working for some people. Okay, someone asking here, any advice on how to come to the decision about whether leadership or management is right for you?
Oh, yeah.
That's an interesting one.
That is an interesting one. I think it's a kind of self-analysis. It's knowing how we like to work. And some people can be great managers, but they're not necessarily the best leaders because, that's perfectly viable too if it works. I think in becoming a leader, as we were sort of talking about earlier, the distinction is about, are we prepared to take people with us, in such as influence and motivate a whole number of people, and there are tools online actually where you can, that I've noticed and I've seen, where you can actually answer questions to and see what the result comes up as.
I see. So
you can use online tools to help you think through that. There's books to read, there's information to read, of course there are. I think a lot of it comes back to us, and thinking management, it has got its place and it's very valuable, absolutely. And the question then, and it's about getting stuff done. But then it's thinking, okay, that's a further step to become a leader, and is it right for me?
Okay, right. And I suppose you could try in some small ways, couldn't you? You could try, like we said, outside work with a voluntary group or something like that, and just see how comfortable you feel in that kind of role. If it really does keep you awake at nights and you think, I absolutely really do not enjoy this, that might be a safe way to find that out before you do it in a situation where it could be a bit career threatening.
And start small.
Start small.
Many people I've worked with in their careers have started small, so they've led on projects or led on where they can make an influence in a great way.
You don't have to be a CEO overnight, do you? No,
absolutely.
Just build it up gradually.
Absolutely.
Okay, there's a question here about RSC mentors. Are you happy for RSC mentors to work across themes and fields? The answer to that is yes, because as Tracy said, mainly mentoring is working on people rather than working on subjects and theories and that sort of thing. What we try to do when we match mentors up with mentees in our scheme is to look at what it is the mentee wants to develop and to find somebody who has had that experience, not necessarily in the same field of chemistry or the same kind of company that they work in, but someone who's had a sort of parallel experience, but there may be a few years further along the road. So it might be that you're a physical chemist and you get matched with an organic chemist. That really doesn't matter, because you shouldn't be talking about chemistry. You should be talking about you, and you should be talking about you as a person and how you want to develop personally and professionally. So there's no restriction on that. No, not at all. Somebody's just saying here that this is the first webinar I've ever joined. Well, welcome. I hope you're enjoying it. Are you planning an ongoing program? We have actually had an ongoing program of these webinars. They are very popular, and we will continue to have them. They are roughly on a monthly basis. And if you want to look at topics that we've run before, listen to recordings of those webinars, if you go onto YouTube and you search for ChemCareers, all one word. So don't put the break in. It's just ChemCareers, all one word. Then what you'll find is recordings of all the webinars that we've done before. Some of them are on very general topics like how to write a good CV, how to prepare for an interview. Some of them are on those kind of topics. Others are on more specific things like today's, on leadership particularly, or on careers in particular fields like careers in regulatory affairs or careers in defence science. There's a whole series of them there. They're totally free. You don't even have to be a member of the RSC to access them. So if you've enjoyed today, I would encourage you to go to YouTube, have a look for ChemCareers, find the other ones that we've done, and also keep an eye on our events pages as well, and keep an eye on your emails, because when we're planning webinars, we do send communication out to say that these things are happening. Look on our events pages and find out when they are and what topics they're on. You're very welcome to join them as often as you wish, and all the other ones are there for you still to listen to. Here's an interesting one, Tracy. How are we helping more women into leadership roles?
Well, I think we are. I think, if I use the RSC for an example, and the leadership team now consists of, a number of women.
It certainly does, yeah. I'm proud to say.
Yeah. And we've just recruited a director of technology, which I think is fantastic. So I think there are definitely more opportunities for women now in leadership. And it's an ongoing thing. And if you look around in different industries, more and more women are coming through. And it's just about grabbing those opportunities. I mean, I'm not an expert in the actual, gender, how many ratio are actually leaders, women versus men. But I would honestly, sincerely say the number of people that I work with as a coach and a mentor, that there are more women coming through in leadership roles now. And they get in, and they're also coming through their own credibility as well, which is fantastic. So I think it's a gradual thing, but I think it's definitely getting better.
Good. And I think, as Tracy said earlier, we've still got the slide up on the screen now. There are many different leadership styles.
Absolutely.
You don't, and as Tracy said, the traditional image of a leader being a male who stands there and bosses other people about and tells them what to do is really sort of not the way things are nowadays. So I think that opens up opportunities for all sorts of different people, male, female, alike, to think about their own leadership style and what they've got to add in a leadership role.
Absolutely.
It could be if you're not naturally a very bossy person, you don't like to, you think, oh, well, that's not for me. But there are many different leadership styles now, many different ways that you can be an empathetic and a good leader without being the stereotype, the old stereotype of the male in a suit who bosses people about and shouts. I won't mention a certain television program, but that kind of thing is very outdated now. So yes, the more the merrier. The more different personality types we have, regardless of gender. I think then the better it makes organisations, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We got a thank you.
We've had a thank you. Well, thank you very much for enjoying it. I'm glad it's been useful to you. There's just one last question now. There are an awful lot of questions here, and we won't have time to answer them all now. But Someone has put in a question saying how to cope in difficult conversations with an employee. Now, that could be a whole webinar in itself, couldn't it? So for, what would you say? Just a couple of quick pointers. How would you handle that, Tracy?
I honestly would say it's all around listening. I think it's around listening to why the person's being difficult. And it goes back to the question we had. It's challenging. It really, really is.
Yes, it's never going to be easy.
Yeah, and it's the resilience, and the empathy and understanding as well. But it's ultimately the employee knowing why they're being difficult. If they are being difficult, it just might be that sometimes we're challenged and we're out of our comfort zone.
Yeah.
And we don't know how to respond to that. So it goes back to having an open, frank, honest discussion and finding out what's going on for the person.
I think a lot of it is, we all like to think that we're very open-minded and have no preconceptions about people. But I think, there's an onus on us as well to realise that we probably do all have preconceptions and we must put those aside. It could be that doing that can help you to make a breakthrough in one way or another. I think with all of these difficult conversation things, if you think about aiming for a win-win situation where you both get something out of that negotiation, that's probably the most achievable thing to aim for. Like I said, we maybe that's the topic for another webinar, isn't it? Difficult conversations. I mean, thank you for asking that question, and we do realise that it's a tricky one, and it is all part of management and leadership to be able to do that. So I think you've just given us an idea for a future webinar session. So thank you. Right, sadly we are running out of time, so what I'm going to do now is to just give you, thank you very much. If we didn't get a chance to answer your question, I am so sorry. We do apologise. If it's a burning question, then by all means email careers@rsc.org and we will do our best to answer you by email. That's if you're an RSC member, of course. Now, it's worth mentioning some useful links here. Those of you who are practicing scientists and you're maybe in scientific roles at the moment, do think about chartered chemist. Do think about that, because that is a very good framework for developing your skills. Even if you don't want to get chartered chemist, I know I shouldn't really say this, but I'm going to anyway. Even if chartered chemist isn't for you, do go to that link that's at the top of the screen at the moment. And what you'll find is that there's a whole skills framework there that you would work towards if you were going for chartered chemist. But you can use that skills framework yourself, whether or not you go for chartered chemist. You can see the kind of skills which are valued in professional chemists, and you can start to think about developing the more transferable skills there around your role. That will give you an idea of the sorts of things which in a leadership role would be very useful to you. It's also worth mentioning the fact that if you're already a chartered chemist, we do have a link with the Chartered Management Institute, whereby you can go through an accelerated process if you're in a management role or a leadership role to achieve chartered manager status. And I did a webinar with my colleague earlier on in the year. The link for it there is the third one down on the screen. So if you're aspiring to chartered chemist or you already have chartered chemist, do have a look if it's relevant to you and see how you could also get chartered manager in a shorter period of time if you have chartered chemist. If you're thinking to yourself, well, that's all very well, my organisation aren't going to be able to, or they're not interested in training me as a leader, or they can't, we do have an approved training courses database, so do have a look on there. All of these courses are third-party courses. They're not RSC courses, but we have inspected them all, and we know that they meet certain standards. So if you're investing in your own training, it's worth having a look on there. The last one on the bottom there, Tracy mentioned continuing professional development. Of course, as a professional body, we're very, very keen that you do that to uphold professional standards. But also in my role, I really want to see our individual members do that to increase their skills and enhance their career. It does by having a good programme of professional development, whether it's through your employer or whether it's something that you set up for yourself. It's really valuable for you to do. If you need help with it at all, then do get in touch with us, careers@rsc.org. But you can find a lot on our website about continuing professional development and resources to do it, and the link is at the bottom of the page there. As I said, if you're a member, you're paying for all of this. So get your money's worth out of us. Just a final bit, RSC Career and Professional Development Services, that's my team. We provide support for members at all career stages, all career conundrums. If you're a member, our email address is at the bottom of the screen there. Drop us an email, careers@rsc.org. We carry out one-to-one consultations in person, by phone or Skype if you're an AMRSC, an MRSC or an FRSC. We can provide guidance on career planning and specific things like applications and interviews. We can help you with supporting your professional development. There's the mentoring scheme that I was talking about. There's also an awful lot of help that we can give you on networking. If it really does strike fear into your heart, we can help you with where to start and how to cope with that. There's an awful lot on our web pages. If you've never been to the Careers team web pages, there's our web link there. You'll find all sorts of things on specific careers and general things as well. So do go and have a look. You don't have to be a member to look at all those resources that are on that web link there. You can use them whether you're a member or not. You do have to be a member if you want to email us and get an answer in person, but I think the reasons for that are obvious. And just as a final slide, if you're not a member and you like what you've heard today and you think you would like to join, there's an awful lot of benefits to joining. We've mentioned networking, we've mentioned getting your post-nominals, getting chartered chemist, routes into chartered manager. There are all sorts of networks that you can join. There's all sorts of in-house career events that we do and resources that we provide. So if you're at all interested, do have a look at that membership link at the bottom of the page there, and see whether it will be worth your while to join. If you're a member of another professional body, by all means go to them and see what they provide as well. That is what we're here for. We want to see the standards in the profession to be as high as they possibly can. And also in our roles, we want to see you make the best of your career that you possibly can. You've put an awful lot of effort into getting where you are now, and we want to help you get the benefits of that later on, whatever it is that you're aspiring to do. So I hope that has been helpful to you. We're just on about past now. So I'd just like to thank you all very much for listening. And thanks for the really interesting questions that you've typed in again. I hope you found this session helpful. Do have a look at the previous webinars that we've done on YouTube. Do drop us an email if there's anything that you feel that we could help you with and you're a member. And I think really that's all I've got to say for now. Tracy, would you like to say goodbye and have some final words?
Yeah, thank you all for tuning in, and it's been an absolute pleasure.
Okay, and it's been a pleasure to have you too, Tracy. So hope that's been helpful to you. And of course, both Tracy and I wish you all the very best wherever your career takes you. So thank you and goodbye for now.